Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for Better Call Saul, Season 4, Episode 7. After seeing this episode, I was reminded of 5 words. Best damn show on TV, or television. Wow. This episode, in my opinion, was the best episode of the season so far. I thought honestly, I love this episode. It was just so, just from beginning to end, very, very well done. This reminded me, probably the most of Breaking Bad throughout this whole season, season 4. Just so many things that are getting closer to Breaking Bad, and just the way that they, decided to even like the shots that they get in this episode, and just the plot points and the characters now that are coming back, like Huel. So, like, this is just awesome, awesome stuff here in Better Call Saul, and we're getting a lot closer than I thought we would be at this point in Season 4, and I do have to say, I did call it with the time jump. I said last review, for last episode, I said I wouldn't be surprised if they do a time jump, right? Because it's just kind of a perfect situation to do it, because you have so many things that you could, explore then if you did the time jump. And that's exactly what they went with. So, and the way they did it was amazing. Like, how many shows are able to do a I think it was, what was it, June to January. So, I think it was about 7 or 8 months. So I'm not sure if it was June to January. I think, because the June, I think, was the first date that he went to that, parole board here, parole officer meetings, or probation or whatever. And then January was the last day, I think. So, anyways, might be wrong, but it was about 7 or 8 months that have passed. What other show can pass 7 to 8 months in time and do it this good? Like, not many other shows. So that is why I believe this is the best damn show on television, and they are just showing it now week to week why they are the damn best. So, anyways, we'll get into a recap here and then get to my rating, which, spoiler alert, it's going to be pretty high, and then favorite character, and then some more overall thoughts of the episode. But yeah, honestly, I think best episode of the season so far, not by a lot, but I do think it was the best one, and I think this is definitely in the top 10 for episodes of the show. Maybe top 5, I'd even put it in. I loved and really, really loved this episode. And not just in my, reaction to it. I think it was just a very well done episode. So, anyways, let's get into the recap here. And I'll talk a little bit about my only negative, though, with this episode. It, kind of a significant one, but yeah, so I'll get into that later. Anyways, so we start off with this beginning sequence, and I'm just going to put this out there. I believe that this intro sequence here is, well, probably the best intro sequence that we've had in Better Call Saul, okay? And maybe even the best sequence just at any time in the episode in the whole show, honestly. It was an amazing, amazing sequence. The way it was done, just everything that kind of came together here and the way they did it. I mean, what other show is doing a split screen, for 5 minutes? What other show on TV is willing to do kind of a split screen and do 2 different scenes happening beside each other and stuff? Like, you never really see that on TV, and they do it to perfection with this scene. So, anyway, so we get this whole beginning here with this split screen to the episode, right? And so what this is meaning here, and what that line is in the middle, is essentially showing Kim and Jimmy distancing themselves from one another over this amount of time that passes, right? And I just thought it was so well done. I mean, what other way could you do this better? You know what I mean? Like, it was really awesome. The split screen was awesome, and showing this and showing that distance, but also showing them how they are still parallel, right? Like, Kim's at her job at Schweikart, and Jimmy's, getting the phones ready to sell, right? So, Kim's moving into her office, and Jimmy's just starting to sell the phones, right? So, and then he's at CC Mobile, and she's busy at work, right? And so, parallel lives, but still separate from one another. So, really, really great job here. So obviously, so Kim is getting her new job at Schweikart, right? And she's, developing quite a few relationships. She's working on pro bonos now. So she's essentially doing everything that she wants, right? And Jimmy, on the other hand, I would say more or less is too in his situation, right? So he's working on his cell phone side business now, right? And he's doing what he wants, selling the phones along with Huel. And I just thought it was really, really great, right? And then we even see the one scene in the sequence where they are together. They are together in the bed, and that line is still there, right? The split screen doesn't dissolve. It doesn't become one. It's still there. That line in the center is still separating the two. And I thought that was maybe the most meaningful little scene in this sequence, or this little, moment, is that line is still there separating the two. So even though they're both together in bed, they are still very separate from one another. So that was really, really well done, honestly. So yeah. And then, of course, this is also showing time passing. Of course, Kim is receiving all these trophies for these new locations, and this, I guess the expansion, right, for Mesa Verde. So she's receiving these kind of like trophies or plaques, right, for the expansions. And Jimmy is attending his monthly probation meetings. I think that's what it is. And of course, so I think it said June to January, but I could be wrong. I've heard some other people on Twitter kind of speculating. But we do know that the year is 2003. We finally get a year. I think that's the first time that that's been mentioned in the show. So that was kind of a big deal. I'm not sure if, I feel like Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould, if a year was going to appear, they knew, and they definitely did on purpose. But maybe people are making a big thing out of it for nothing. I don't know. But Breaking Bad, I have heard from Vince Gilligan that it does take place in current times. Now, of course, it was on in 2009, 2010. That's when it started, I believe. Or was it 2000? No, it's 2008. And so that's when it started, right? So we got to, keep in mind, it's not, 2015 or whatever when you're watching it. It's current times for when it came out in 2008, 2009. So we're still about 6 years or 5 years before Breaking Bad. Ideally, right? I mean, it could be off by about a year or so, but just in terms of, general terms, we're about 4 or 5 years off right now. So anyway, so time's passing, and the way they did this was brilliant, really, really brilliant. The way that they were able to do and show this time skip, and they didn't just skip the time; they showed us what was happening in that time. And I did really like this, though. Just a notable thing is Jimmy is giving away those cards for the cell phones with Call Saul Goodman and working with Huel. So I just thought we're getting closer, right? Like, we're getting closer to him becoming Saul, and him working with Huel. Of course, that was a big thing in Breaking Bad. Huel was a good kind of a good assistant or a good worker for him that he could rely on. And then of course Call Saul Goodman. That's his name, in Breaking Bad. So, anyways, just thought that was a cool thing to note. And then the sequence ends right with the two doing almost everything alone. Right? I mean, so at the beginning of the sequence, we see, okay, well, they come home, they're eating dinner together still, okay, they're in the bed together and all that stuff. But then it ends, right? The sequence ends at the very end, and they're actually both in bed, right? Jimmy and Kim, again, we see this scene, but this time we see Kim's section of the split screen fades out into black, and Jimmy's side remains. Awesome stuff. Absolutely brilliant, right? I mean, it's just showing how Kim has faded so much from Jimmy's life in these 7 or 8 months that have passed. And it's just, it's crazy the way they did this all within, about 5.5 minutes. This whole sequence was done. So anyways, and even Jimmy's facial expressions as he knows that she just got into the bed. Definitely different than when we saw them 8 months ago. So their relationship is not going well, and Kim is slowly kind of fading out of Jimmy's life over these past, 7 or 8 months. So anyways, like I said, one of the best sequences of the show ever, I would say, or at least best intro sequence of the show ever. That was really awesome. I was blown away by it. So then we get a little bit into the episode here, kind of after the intro plays. And of course, now with the time jump, Hector is now awake from his stroke. And this is one of the big things that I said. If you do a time jump, then you can have Hector wake up, right? And that's exactly what they chose to do. So he's awake from his stroke, and I just loved this part here. And he's, the doctor is asking him questions along with these cards, and he's responding to her cues with his finger movements. He's tapping the desk. This was just awesome, man. It even brought back a little bit of nostalgia from Breaking Bad, of course, right? He was ringing that bell, right? So he doesn't have the bell yet, but he's tapping. So that was just really great. It was something small in there, but it was awesome. It was really, really great. So anyway, so he's awake now, and of course we see later in the episode then Gus is kind of faced with a decision now in order what to do with him, right? Because he actually has awakened and is recovering from that stroke, and he wasn't even sure if he would wake up again. So yeah, that happens. So we see the workers get in the in the back of the laundry truck to go to work with Mike, right? So obviously we know time has passed here. Oh, and sorry, I didn't want to mention this. Great song in the beginning sequence there. That was amazing. And then we get another really good song to really capture the mood in this scene with Mike and the workers going to the laundromat. Really great two sequences with the songs. So I did want to mention that. And I'll probably cover that at the end again. So obviously it's been a few months, right? So they've been working for, quite a bit of time, obviously 6 or 7 months at least, right? On this kind of underground secret, laundromat lab, right? And so we just kind of see their daily routine. So they get in the back of the truck with Mike there, and they go over to the laundromat, right? And they kind of, go, they walk right in, and they unzip the tent, they go in the tent, and then they go down. So really, really nice job to show us that whole process. And it looks like they've made quite a bit of progress on it, right? So it actually looks like they've kind of, dug it out all the way. All the supports are up, right? Actually is coming together, right? It looks like they've made a lot of progress. So it's really great to see this whole thing coming together, especially for, what we know it's going to turn into in Breaking Bad. It is so cool that they're giving us this and showing us the actual building of it, right? I mean, that was a huge question. Like, how did this thing even, get built? How did this thing even come to be in Breaking Bad? And now we're getting to find out. So really, really great stuff. So, but we do see in this episode that there are some challenges. There has been, and then there's a kind of a big setback in this episode where one of the men kind of backs up into a support beam, and it actually launches it back, and it destroys one of the things they were building, I guess, one of the projects. And so that was kind of a huge setback, right? And then we hear from, I forget his name. But anyways, the head of them, the German guy, says, people, they were expecting this to be over in 8 months, and it's been almost 8 months, and we're not even halfway done, right? And so that's, a huge, huge thing. So we know it's not going as well as they planned. Mike kind of knew this. He foresaw this for sure. He was able to foresee that reality, but it's not going that well. So there's obviously some challenges coming along with it, but they have come a long way from just being ground, right? Like, at least they have kind of a thing to work with. So anyways, I will say though, the visuals that we got of the underground lab with the men in there really reminded me of when Hank and Gomi found the lab after it was blown up in Breaking Bad. Really similar. I actually went back to see pictures of that scene and this scene, and it actually looks like pretty damn similar, right? Because it's just cement and concrete and whatever, and the support beams. Pretty much that's all that's left after the explosion. Maybe even less than that. I mean, like the ground caved in as well. And so it does look kind of the same. So that's just what I kind of pictured there when I saw that visual of the underground lab kind of in progress. So that was really great. Whenever they can kind of remind me of any Breaking Bad stuff, I'm really happy. So anyways, then we get the doctor who Gus has hired, right, to take care of Hector, kind of be his own kind of advisor on Hector. So she goes to Gus's house and tells him essentially that Hector is really improving and doing very well after he is awakened, right? So I think she says he's been awake for about a month now. And so obviously we skipped about 8 months, but he's only been up for a month. But he's already made a lot of progress. So Gus asked to see the video of his progress that she's been taking, as the days have gone by. So she shows him the progress video from the day that we saw, right? And so the events a little bit earlier in the episode, that we actually saw for ourselves. So Gus witnesses the biggest part of the whole scene is Gus witnesses Hector flicking this his glass of water, right, off the table, right, and so he knocks the cup off. And again, we saw this earlier, and so he knocks the cup off the table, and it's pretty much only to look at the nurse's butt when she leans over, right, to grab the glass off the floor. So in that instance, just a little thing like that. And to the doctor, it meant nothing. She's like, oh, yeah, it's just a muscle spasm, whatever. And she didn't realize, but Gus is totally onto him. So Gus takes this little situation as a cue that this video proves to him that it is the same Hector, right? And he asked the doctor before that, is this going to be the same Hector? Is he going to be himself? And if the answer was yes, he obviously doesn't want Hector to become himself again. He wants the complete opposite of that, right? And so this instance proves to him that he's the same Hector because he was able to, process that through his mind and organize this. So he flipped the cup over and was able to, get a look at the nurse's butt. So anyways, so due to this, Gus basically dismisses the doctor just like that. And she says, we might see him walk again and walk and talk again if they continue. Right? So, you shouldn't stop it now. We can really get him recovering. And Gus declines, right? And it makes sense. That's exactly what he doesn't want, right? He doesn't want Hector to talk or walk again, right? He wants him to be kind of trapped in this body and suffer through the rest of his life. So, that's just what it is. So, anyway, so he dismisses the doctor, says she is, he's done with her. She doesn't need to do anything anymore. And they're just going to let Hector be. Exactly playing into Gus's hands, of course, right? Then we get this whole sequence, which kind of dictated the rest of the episode here in terms of Jimmy and Kim and Huel and everything like that. So anyway, so yeah, really great stuff there with Gus. So police officer shows up on Jimmy's little corner there where he's selling these phones. We already caught a little bit of a glimpse of that earlier in the episode where he's, Huel's throwing the phones to him and the guys pull up in their car. It looks like a drug deal, right? That's what it looks like, but he's just selling these temporary phones. To drug dealers. So in a way, I guess it is kind of, encouraging drug dealing. But anyways, so this police officer shows up and he asks Jimmy to basically stop selling to his customers, right? Because they're using these phones to peddle drugs, right? And other criminal acts that the cops don't want to see. And so they were able to find him when they actually busted a guy with, Jimmy's card on him and, said that he got the phone from him, right? And so Jimmy, he's selling these phones legally, right? And he says he even has a permit, which... How did he get a permit, to sell on the corner of the street there? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I didn't know how he would go about getting a permit for that anyways. So he tells him, I have a permit, this is perfectly legal. I'm going to keep selling them. No thanks, right? So he declines, right? Because he knows that those are his main clientele. Those are his main client base. He stops selling to them, he's not going to be able to sell these phones. And that's what he wants. He wants to keep doing it, right? And so... So he basically declines, right? Tells the officer, I'm not going to listen to you, pretty much, right? And so the officer's a little offended, but he can't really do much about it. So anyway, so while Jimmy is talking with him, Huel comes up and he have his headphones on, he's coming back with the sandwiches, and he sees a guy kind of antagonizing Jimmy, right? And just kind of up in his face. So Huel comes up and hits him over the head with the bag and knocks the cop down to the ground, not knowing, of course, that he was a cop, right? And Jimmy's like, he's a cop, yelling, but Huel can't hear because of the music. So anyways, just a really kind of funny, ironic sequence here that actually has some pretty serious ramifications to it. So anyways, just kind of a really, again, funny, ironic little thing that happened. Well, not funny for Huel, but, just a really weird situation. So, of course, then Jimmy afterwards talks to the police officer and says, okay, don't charge him, right? I'm sorry for what happened. But he's unable to negotiate with him, right? Because he just told the cop to essentially screw off, right? And so the cop's not going to do anything for him after Jimmy didn't do something for him, right? And Jimmy was not very nice to him, so he's not going to be nice to him. And for that, Huel gets taken away in the cop car as a result, and they are going to continue and press charges against them. So, anyways, then that leads to the whole rest of the thing kind of unraveling here, for sure. So Jimmy is kind of left with no other way, right? No other choice but to go to Kim, right? So he goes to her and asks her if she will help get Huel out of the charge, right? Which shouldn't be too hard for Kim, right? And also this kind of up her alley because she started to do these pro bonos, right? And so this was kind of a pro bono, right? Helping someone who kind of needs it, in Huel, right? And so anyway, so he just wants her to help Huel get out of the charge because, you know, if he was a lawyer, he would do it himself. He says that, right? But he's not yet, right? He has one more month to go now. So Jimmy has an idea to set up the cop in court to paint him as this kind of drunk guy who, you know, didn't know what was happening or didn't know who hit him and stuff like that. He gets this whole elaborate idea, and Kim pretty much rejects the idea completely, right? She doesn't want to go that way. She doesn't want to go that route. And she, you know, just wants to play it safe, right? And go straight and narrow. And I thought this little scene here showed a huge difference between the two and what has developed over these months. Is that Kim has become, you know, an upstanding lawyer, you know, helping out with pro bonos and Schweikart and Mesa Verde and all this stuff. And Jimmy is selling cell phones to criminals, right? So you see the huge parallel between the two. And then, of course, in the end of the episode, things kind of flip on their head here. But anyway, so in this scene, though, I really felt like that showed the difference, that Kim was not willing to do that at all. And Jimmy is very insistent on it. So anyway, so Kim says she'll look into it, right? She'll take a look and she'll try. And I'm going to say the interaction between the two in this scene did not seem like a couple. It seemed more like a lawyer and a client. That's all it seemed like. So it was very, very different from 8 months ago when they would have talked. So really, really kind of sad actually in this scene. And even like she closes the door on Jimmy pretty much when he's trying to talk to her still at the end of this scene. So, you know, really kind of sad to see where their relationship has gone. And it definitely has not gone upwards, right? So anyways, yeah, so that was you know, an interesting scene, but Kim says she'll look into it. So then Kim goes and talks. So she does look into it. She goes and talks with a prosecutor on the case and tries negotiating with her, right? And tells her that, you know, it's unequal justice what Huel is getting compared to the other cases in history. And I mean, the whole thing is really kind of a misunderstanding. You know, I guess to a degree, right? It's still a police officer. You can't just assault a police officer, no matter what the circumstances are, of course, right? But he was off duty. Huel had headphones in, and he is paid, you know, as a security guy for Jimmy, right? Like he was doing his job pretty much, and he just didn't know that he was a cop. So it was a tough situation, and it seems like the prosecutor does not know the full details of it, and Kim's just getting frustrated because, you know, this is not the case that this prosecutor is saying it is. Anyways, and then the prosecutor tells her that her only witness is a scumbag, disbarred lawyer who peddles drop phones to criminals. Talking about Jimmy. This one got to Kim. This one, I think, really got to Kim. So Kim replies, "You don't know the whole story." And she kind of walks out, you know, she struts out of there. It really looks like it got to Kim. She gets kind of even emotional in that moment as she's walking away. Because I don't think up to this moment that she realized what kind of reputation Jimmy and what kind of man Jimmy was turning into in these months that she's kind of been focusing on her own career and her own life. So I think this moment is when Kim kind of realizes what Jimmy is and what he's become. And first of all, I mean, she hates this prosecutor now because she was, you know, being a total, you know, bitch. I'm sorry, but she is being a bitch to her and Jimmy. Of course, she doesn't know the two are together. But anyways, and I also think that she's kind of realizing what Jimmy is now. So anyways, that was a really interesting scene there. And of course, that sparks the next scene. So then Jimmy is waiting outside the parking lot when Kim walks out. And Kim tells him that Huel is going to have to do time. There's really no way around it. And that's exactly what Jimmy promised wouldn't happen. Right? He promised Huel, you will not, serve a day in jail, right? I'm going to get you out of this. All you have to do is stay. Like, don't run, right? And that's what Huel wants to do. He wants to run. So anyway, so Kim tells him to tell Huel to stay, right? And make sure he doesn't run, because it's just going to make things worse, right? If he stays, does a few months in prison, and he comes out, he'll be fine, right? And so anyways, and Jimmy, of course, is feeling really bad because he promised Huel that he wasn't going to serve any time and he was going to get him out of it, and now that doesn't look like an option. So Jimmy says yes, but then says, you do your thing and I'll do mine. Like, what does that mean, right? And Kim says, Jimmy, what does that mean, right? And he says, don't worry, and then he drives off. So, anyways, she knows at this point that Jimmy's going to do something here. He's not going to let Huel spend time in prison, right? And so he's going to do what he wanted to do in the first place, most likely, and paint this police officer as this drunk guy or whatever, right? And anyway, so he said, you do your thing and I'll do mine. So Kim definitely knows what is going to happen here. She's not happy with Jimmy in this scene. As she said, what does that mean, Jimmy, right? Like, what are you going to do now? And so anyway, so that was great. So she leaves, she drives off. And then probably the biggest twist of the whole episode, she turns her car around really, really quickly and begins putting a plan in motion. So she goes to the stationery store, it looks like, and starts getting a bunch of notepads and pens and putting in her cart, right? And then she calls Jimmy and says, I have a better way. Stop whatever you're doing. I have a better way. Did not expect her to go along with him here. Total twist to what the other scenes were conveying, with her being kind of the upstanding and straight and narrow kind of lawyer, and not, kind of reducing herself to where Jimmy is at right now. So this was really cool to see her at the end of the episode flipping sides here for Jimmy and saying, I have a better way. So she is putting her plan in motion to hopefully get Huel out of this and not do jail time. And it looks like Jimmy is going to be along for the ride. So that will just about do it for the recap here. All right, so in terms of our rating for this episode, like I said, I see best episode for this season so far, and one of the best episodes in the show, for me at least. I'm giving this one a 4.9 out of 5. So like I said, best episode of the season so far, in my opinion. Although I did like episode 2, I thought that was a very good episode. Which other ones? Episode 3 was pretty good with Gale that we saw. That was just kind of a cool reveal in itself. Episode 4 was pretty good, actually. Last episode was good, particularly the ending half of that episode was good. But yeah, so we've had some really great episodes. Like, this is not the best episode of the season by far, but I would say, it is. It definitely is. So anyways, my only negative, honestly, my only negative really of this episode is that there was no Nacho, right? And honestly, he hasn't been in, the last 3 episodes? He hasn't been in 5, 6, or 7 now. And I really did expect to see him, right? Because we see this time jump and things happen. And in 8 months, his life has probably changed a lot. And we just don't see him in this episode. So I'm sure that Michael Mando will be back reprising Nacho next episode, and I think he's going to have a big part in next episode for that reason. And so anyway, so hopefully we do see him next week, but I was a little disappointed that we didn't see him in this episode. I just felt like it was necessary because we see all these other characters and where they've been in these past 7 or 8 months, and we haven't seen Nacho, and he's a big character in the show. So anyways, so I would really like to see him next episode. But again, pretty much my only negative of this one. Great music throughout the whole episode. I mentioned it, at the little beginning there. But the beginning sequence, right, that introduction sequence, amazing. The sequence with Mike there. And then we get another sequence here with Kim at the very end of the episode where they have a little bit of music. So really great songs. And this is just really Breaking Bad-esque, the type of way that they integrate these songs. And they actually, kind of become the embodiment of that scene, right? Like, you listen to that song, you remember what that scene is, and it really conveys what the theme and the overall feeling of that scene is. So, amazing stuff here. Whoever picks the music for Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul deserves some type of award, because it is awesome every single week. So, anyways, really great in this episode, and I can't say that about every episode, because not all the time do we have a lot of songs and music, but in this one we did, so really great. Then I'm going to leave you guys with a question here. Will getting Huel off of his charges bring Kim and Jimmy closer together, or is this relationship kind of over now after these months? Is it even repairable at this point? So that's a tough question, and I honestly don't know the answer. I'm not sure which way they're going to go. I do think that, getting Huel off these charges, obviously Kim has a new plan that Jimmy's going to go along with now. So they're going to be working together on this one. Again, not sure if that's going to bring their relationship back together, if it's even possible at this point, if it is even repairable. So, and honestly, I feel like it makes more sense for the overall narrative of Better Call Saul, like the series, for them not to get back together, because obviously we know Kim is not in Breaking Bad and not part of Jimmy's life anymore, I don't think. At least we don't get any, details about that in Breaking Bad. So it wouldn't make sense for her to kind of fade out of Jimmy's life now and maybe even move out by the end of season 4 and them kind of going on separate journeys. So I wouldn't be surprised if we go that way. But it would be nice maybe to see them try. Maybe they try to get closer again and fail, and then that's when they separate. So we'll see what happens. There's 3 more episodes to go. I'm really looking forward to it. And next episode, I think, is going to be a large focus on trying to get Huel out of this and, doing this, executing this plan. So, anyways, that's my question for you guys, though. Will getting Huel off of these charges bring Kim and Jimmy closer together? Or do you even think that relationship is repairable at this point? So, leave your answer down below. Let me know. Anyways, my favorite character for this one, I know I'm kind of being funny with this one, so, I'm going to pick Huel Babineau. I got to pick Huel, man. He's played by Lavelle Crawford. He was kind of a fan favorite of Breaking Bad, right? He was just kind of that, comedic, presence in there, helping out Saul, who was already kind of a comedic, a comedic, presence in Breaking Bad. And so anyways, it was really great to see Huel integrated now in Better Call Saul and actually playing a little bit of a big role. He was in last episode, now he's in this episode. So, that's pretty significant for his part in Better Call Saul now. And now he's actually the subject of kind of a main plot point now. So the character is getting a little bit more screen time and a little bit more development. Really great to see Huel before the events of Breaking Bad. And another, great Breaking Bad crossover character to have. So anyways, and Lavelle Crawford does an awesome job. I do think he's actually a comedian. Like his main profession is a comedian. Because I think before Breaking Bad, he was like, I could be wrong, but I think he did stand-up comedy a little bit. And so anyway, so he's a comedian, and he is really funny in these shows. So you definitely see it, right? But anyways, guys, that'll just about do it for my review of Better Call Saul this week. Again, thought it was the best episode of the season so far. One of the best episodes of the show, really. I thought it was a really, really great episode. Now, not as much action. For those of you guys who really love action and really like to see that in Better Call Saul, there's not much of it, but when there is, it's really, really great, right? So yeah, I do take your point there. There wasn't a lot of action in this one, but there hasn't been a lot of action in really any of these episodes in season 4, though in my opinion, has been probably the best season of the show yet. So, it's kind of a push and pull there, which one you like better. But anyways, for me, best episode of the season so far. So thank you so much for watching this review, guys. Thanks so much for your support on the channel. I do really appreciate it. Now we're at 180 subscribers, I think, as of today, which is awesome. Let's see where the channel goes to in the next little bit here, but I'm really thankful. So anyways, guys, again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. There's only 3 episodes to go now for Better Call Saul Season 4. I'm looking forward to it. So next week for Better Call Saul Season 4, Episode 8.
Oh, the buzzing of the bees and the cigarette trees, the soda water fountain, where the lemonade springs and the bluebird sings in that big rock candy mountain.